This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. The data collected during this process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meetings protocols, including the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So with that, can I ask for a roll call and then apologies and declarations of interest? Diane?
We have apologies for absence from Councillor Law, with Councillor Crowther substituting, and Councillor Maguire, Reverend Burt, Mr Doherty, Ms MacDonald and Ms McEwen. Convener will now move to an attendance roll call before proceeding to the declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate they are present at the meeting either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong. Present in the chamber. Councillor Brennan. Present in person. Councillor Clougherty.
In the chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present remotely.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Quinn. Present chamber. Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present remotely.
And Reverend Fraser Donaldson. Are there any further declarations of interest to those intimated earlier today?
Councillor Quinn?
Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing it.
No others. Can we move to agenda item number 6 in your papers, which is the Education Revenue Budget Update? Mary, are you going to take us through this?
Yes, please, Convener, thank you. This report covers the revenue budget projection for the education side of the committee. The current projection is an overspend of 939,000, which unfortunately is an increase in projected spend of 778,000 from last committee. This overspend is less than 1% of the overall budget at 0.9%. The main reasons for this movement are firstly an increase in teachers' costs. This is partly due to an error in the previous projection, whereby the budget was overstated by 200,000, with the remainder largely relating to spending supply teachers when more than was previously projected. The second issue contributing to the movement is within catering. There's been an increase of 503,000 here, which is mainly due to assumptions made in terms of budget allocated for 1140 hours, as well as provision spend being underestimated in earlier reports. It is anticipated at this point that this will be corrected for the coming financial year. On both matters, officers from Finance Services and Education Services are working closely to investigate how this has occurred and to ensure that action is taken to ensure that this doesn't happen again, as well as to assess the impact on the 24-25 budget. And we will report back after the summer recess on this. In addition to these two issues, there was also an increase in ESN transport of 103,000, a reduction in non-teaching employees of 106,000 and a reduction in water charges of 52,000. Nothing else to add to the report, but let's take any questions.
Thank you, Mary. Just before I let members in, obviously it's quite disappointing we've got such a large overspend, especially at the year end. I'm going to bring our corporate director in to actually go through what actions have been taken to try and ensure what did happen and to try and ensure that it doesn't happen again. So I'll ask Ruth to comment.
Okay, and thank you for bringing me in. Yes, this is a very unusual position for us to be in. I have to say, an unexpected position, and you want my assurance of to make sure that we're looking at this, we're looking at what's happened, and to make sure, most importantly, that the similar situations don't happen again. So we're looking at the way we monitor the budgets. We're working with our finance colleagues to make sure that we get accurate and up-to-date forecasting of budgets. These are two differing budget lines, and one working with the catering and one particularly working with the teacher salaries, and there are different aspects that have led up to that, but we do want our assurance that myself and Alan Buckram and Mary are working together to make sure that we are able to monitor and take action earlier on our budgets. So, if looking at the different parts of it, the teacher salaries, the overspend particularly, is looking as if it's linked to the supply budget. Now, those of you who've been in the committee long enough will remember we always had an underspend on supply budgets because we couldn't ever get supply teachers. We're in a different context now, and not an unwelcome one, I have to say, for education, but being able to get supply teachers is new for us. 4 or 5 years ago, you couldn't get, schools couldn't cover vacancies, and were struggling to do so. So we typically would have had an underspend on our supply budget. We're not in that position now. We have taken immediate and swift action to make sure that that supply budget, which is overspent, is now coming in for this financial year on target. So Michael has instructed all the teachers to stop any of the central supply budget and to work within the additional teachers that are in schools. So we need to make sure that the circumstances that led to that overspend are not leading to us building up another overspend in the future. For the catering, this is particularly to do with the complexity of the 1140 hours and how that's being put together. So we're looking at how the budgets are allocated, where the budgets are coming from, whether or not they're linked to inflation, and also looking to see if there is any overspend or duplication in what we would have assumed, especially around snack money in the early years. So there are two different scenarios that have led to the overspend. We don't want to be in this position. Apologies that we are in this position. It's not one we've ever found ourselves in before. Please have my assurance that we've taken, as soon as we were aware of this, we have taken every possible action to be able to manage this position.
Thanks for that update, Ruth. Now, not to questions either to Mary or to Ruth on the broader context of the underspend. Elizabeth?
Thanks, Kieran. It is a really difficult position. It's £1 million and just about, and you know, we've sat in members' budget working groups agonising over £4,000 is, you know, so when you're sitting here and it's £1 million, it's a tricky situation to just go, okay, we'll make sure that it doesn't happen again. I know what you're saying, Ruth, about monitoring going forward, but that should be a new action. That should be the sort of bread and butter of what is happening in the relationship between the operational budgets of education and finance processes. So I'd like to know why it hasn't happened in this instance. It's almost £1 million. That's probably my first point. My second point would be about the bits that relate to supply and all of this. I kind of feel that if someone's a supply teacher and they're in a supply contract, particularly if it's a longer term supply situation, the reason for them to no longer be doing what they do should be that the supply isn't needed anymore, not that the budget's not being monitored. I think that's an issue, and I'm asking also if it's possible to make sure we've got good communications with staff, all the supply staff, all the different categories of supply staff, because I think there are rumours in the system, there are rumours kicking about, some of which may or may not be true as to what the impact of all this is going to be, and I think it's really important that staff aren't kind of worried or kind of caught up in things that may or may not be accurate. That's kind of main things. I would say, but a fourth thing maybe would be, is that something that we need to flag up in an audit context as well? You know, it's not just something in terms of this committee, but if it's a failure in processes, then I'm wondering if it needs to be referred there also.
I think I'll bring Ruth in. She's obviously supported by Michael required on the first three ones. Mary might be able to touch on the last one on the audit, if that's okay, Ruth. I think it's important from a finance point of view that she comments on the audit stuff. So I'll let Ruth comment on the...
Yes, and so we were talking about the process, and absolutely accept, you know, the budget monitoring where, and the report's very clear where there have been some mistakes made. We need to look at the process. We know that finance are taking every action they can, also to look at where there's been perhaps single points of failure, or where there have been absences, or where there's, to make sure that work is covered if things haven't happened. The other one is about the additional teachers. Remember, we do have additional teachers in the system with recovery teachers. So that's what we are using at the moment to cover the supply. So if you have additional teachers within the education system, then we typically have used those with the sense they've been meant to be used as recovery teachers, but with an oversight such a significant spend on supply and overspend on supply, then basically we need to start using recovery teachers actually to cover the supply in-house. We are doing this till the end of term at the moment, and we also know that with the summer holidays coming up in the exam season, secondaries won't need as much supply as typically they have used. So we are looking at the way we work with our schools about getting supply cover in, and making sure that the situation which is happening, which basically we've overspent on supply. There's been more teacher absence, and actually we would be expected to be able to say what we're doing to manage teacher absence, but also what we're doing to keep that supply budget down. And that's what we're looking at now. And that doesn't mean there won't be supply forevermore. That's not the case. And we do have permanent supply in the system. But what I would say is, whilst we do have additional teachers, we've got an overspend and we're bringing in supply, then we have to manage that within our budget. I don't know if Michael's got anything else to add on that.
No, I mean, other than just the piece about comms to staff, we certainly been speaking to unions about that, and asked head teachers to be very sensitive about their approach to that, and as clear as they can be with communication in relation to our understanding. We're speaking to head teachers again today about it, updating them on where we're currently at. So I've nothing further to add to what we said.
Can I bring Mary in with regard to the question about audit?
Yes, through you, Convener. I don't believe that we need to specifically contact audit. I think this outturn position will be included in the year-end audit, and as such, it will be subject to that audit in that context. So I don't think, and we have looked at additional controls that we can build into the monitoring process. We're looking at training the staff. Not to make excuses, we have had pressures on staff, and due to long-term absences, we've now looked to bring in new people to address some of these issues as well. So we are putting things in place to stop that. So no, I don't think we do need audit specifically contacted, but it will be subject to the year-end external audit.
Okay, I'll go back to Councillor Robertson first of all. Elizabeth, we get in.
Thanks for all of those answers, but I suppose it's the question that remains is, how do we get to the position where if there's absences or things in the system, it takes us to get to £1 million overspend on a budget before it's brought to light? That's not what I would expect.
I think you're getting agreement there. I think you're getting agreement there, and I think the crux of the matter is that if during the process of us as a committee seeing that the overspend was going one way, then we as a committee would challenge that and challenge officers to say, how are we getting that back in track? I think the problem here is probably it's came so late in the financial year, and I think that's what's causing these problems. So that the measures that Michael and Ruth are putting in now, if they were put in 6 months ago, what was first looked at, then we probably wouldn't be in this situation now. So I don't think anybody's shying away from that, an error's been made, and I think it's a case of our officers are now saying, right, okay, this is what we are putting in place to ensure that the errors are not in place again, and you can only have these insurances. For us as councillors, when we get committee papers, we should up to date, and people have talked about up to date information with regard to especially the financial controls. So I think that'll be well documented as well, maybe more questions asked future committees and early on in if we see we're off track again. Hopefully that's okay, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring Councillor Wilson in online and then Councillor Quinn. David?
Thank you very much, Convener. I've got to say, I agree very much with what Councillor Robertson has said. I also hear what the Director has said, and I welcome her comments. But as the chair of the Police and Fire and Rescue, I'm hearing all the time from both those bodies the cuts they're having to make. Those cuts were a direct result of a settlement with teachers at 14%, which makes them the best paid teachers in the whole of the United Kingdom. And I think we should be asking a bit more from them. I'm very disappointed for overspend on teaching and supply. I'm not too worried about the 200,000. Mistakes happened, but that still leaves 739,000 of an overspend. Disappointing, but I hear what others have said. Thank you, Convener.
David, do you want anybody to comment on that, or you just make a comment yourself? Have you a question directly?
No, that is a comment from my experience.
Okay.
Others are struggling, and some seem to be getting well treated.
Oh, okay, and I'll refrain from commenting on it. I'll bring Councillor Quinn in. Lynn?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, obviously it is unfortunate, you know, when you get the papers and we're here as a scrutiny function. I keep on saying we're here to scrutinise and not criticise, so, but we have to do our public duty in terms of scrutinising, so, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, these questions need to be asked. So, you know, I pretty much agree with what Liz is saying, and I don't want to go over the same points, but I think from my own personal point of view is I really need to understand what is the impact on the service and what are the impacts in terms of service on our young people who potentially are going to see consequences of the error. So I kind of need to look at that as well. And obviously the concern is because it's the year end, you know, and we had no notification up from previous committees, so it's come all at once, all at the end, and the questions is, you know, why was it not spotted anywhere through that full year? So, and absolutely I agree with Liz. I know you're saying they're going to do an investigation, but for myself as an elected member, I would like to see an audit report. I think we had something similar in the past, and it went as a special report to audit committee, just to have some sort of reassurance that the mechanisms that are being put in place are robust enough so that this error doesn't happen again. So I 100% back up Liz's suggestion that it goes to a report audit, so a proper investigation can happen once we know the facts.
Okay, I'll bring Ruth in.
Yes, so Mary said this will be part of the year-end accounting and the associated process of doing that, and also the paper is very clear that we will bring a report back to the next committee once we've had a chance to look further as to what happened. We do know where some of the errors were, and Mary said that we're bringing in extra resources to help with that. And you know, there have been some errors in the ongoing monitoring, which has meant that people haven't been able to rectify the situation as it went along. However, the action we have taken should have no direct impact on the young people, which was one of your questions, Councillor Quinn. At the moment, we do have additionality in our schools that should be able to cover the supply. If the supply budget has been overstretched, Michael over the course of the year has already taken action to look at almost a mid-year saving process where we were looking towards an overspend of teachers and to make sure that we were coming in within our means. And to pick up on Councillor Wilson's point, as teachers have increased in their salaries, so have the salaries for the supply teachers as well. So actually we have to bear that in mind as we go forward. But we do have additional teachers in our school who should be able to cover that supply, the supply needs. We're working with the head teachers. Nobody's in the business of taking teachers away from classes, but we're looking at where there is additionality within the school. So that's what we're doing. There may be some changes. So we're picking supplies in classes, and we're asking longer term recovery teachers to cover those. There may be some changes, and that would be the most immediate impact. We also have to maintain our teacher numbers for the beginning of September, so that puts us as a service into quite a difficult position, in that we can't just say we're going to go ahead with the equivalent of less teachers next year, because actually we need to maintain our teacher numbers. So we have to balance that very carefully between what the teachers do, where the teachers are, what the teachers do in the school, and also how we manage that supply budget going forward. If there is an additionality, challenging the schools very much to say, do you need that additionality? Is the resource within the school that can cope with that? And that's what we've agreed with the head teachers going forward. We do something very similar in the early years, where they have a shift in the amount of young people throughout the year, and challenging whether or not they need the supply, and making sure that that budget is monitored very carefully. Also with the catering as well, we need to look at the complexity of that, how we've allocated those budgets, and to make sure that there isn't any duplication within the system.
Okay. You want to come back in, Councillor Quinn?
Yeah, so it's just on the audit question. I think that's true. I sort of based the thing about audit and the report to actually go to audit, because I'm conscious you've got finance department and natural departments within there that crosses those two areas. So is that report, I know it wasn't proposed, but is that an option?
Yeah, I noticed on the recommendations, right,
I would leave that to the Chief Financial Officer to work with finance, and we'll go as, it's policy and laws will take the year-end report, and I'll leave that up to our Chief Financial Officer.
Right, just to get clarity in that, so what we're actually saying here, we're recommending that committee notes the 2023-24 outturn will be reported after the summer recess. So after the summer recess, on this agenda item, when we get the revenue budget, we'll have a clear understanding of where we fit in on the year-end process. Now, what with Councillor Quinn and Councillor Robertson have asked for is a report to go to the audit. Would it be more beneficial if a report is going to the audit to wait to that point in time to do it? Would it be for this committee to ask for that report to go to audit, or would it be audit themselves to request it? And I just need a wee bit of clarity on the governance of what we're doing. So you've got waiting to the next recess, but it's just to get in order of what we're actually asking for here, if that makes sense.
I would take advice from the Chief Financial Officer, but we haven't reported the final outturn for this committee yet, and I think we have to wait for that.
Is Mary there?
Yeah, through you can agree. I mean, I can speak to Alan and agree a position on that, but yeah, I think it would be wise to wait till the final position is known.
Right. So I'm going to go to Councillor Robertson who first suggested it. So what they're actually saying is wait to after the recess, and then if there's still a requirement. And Mary, I'm just want to get the governance right. Do we as a committee call for a report to go to audit? I just want to make sure the governance is right in this. Does audit require, or does P&R require, given the fact that the overspend that we have is going to have implications to the P&R committee? So I just want to get the governance right as well. If you can advise us on that, and then I'll go back to Elizabeth.
Sorry, I'm not sure on the governance arrangements in terms of that. I mean, I think it depends, I suppose, what we're calling for. Is it to do with the outturns? Is it to do with the procedures and the processes we've got in place? I suppose it's what is the report? What are we asking it to do?
I guess we'll be all. I will let Elizabeth back in first of all. If I've muddied the waters.
No, you haven't at all. No. I think it potentially both, but definitely the procedures and the processes, because the procedures and processes have already failed. When it gets to the final outturn, a lot of this could be remedied financially, and then it's not the issue on the scale that it is. But today it is. So you know what I mean. So by the time the budget is seen by P&R or whatever, then a lot of it could have been because we've taken actions. I think the financial position will be better. But that doesn't alter the fact that we've been in the position that we've been in, and the processes haven't worked.
Okay. And
If that helps.
I do exactly what, but I'll go back to my point on the governance bit. Do we call for that as an education committee? Because obviously from the audit point of view, I don't want to say it's like he's the policeman, but it'll be finance to do an audit on finance about how it go wrong, but sometimes that's what happens anyway. I just want to make sure, do we do that as an education committee? I'm just looking for help from either finance or our corporate directors to say, yes, we can do that, or no, we wait for PR to do that.
Can I take advice on that before I give you an answer? I don't want to give you the incorrect advice. Sorry, Councillor.
No.
But we can use the internal audit to look at processes and procedures.
Right.
But whether or not a committee can call for that, or whether or not we do that on a risk-based one, I don't know, and I will need to take advice on that.
Okay, right. Okay, so just want to make sure both yourself and Councillor Quinn are satisfied. So the corporate director is going to take advice on whether it's right for a committee to call for that, but which I believe what you're saying is that internal audit will look at the process and procedures that are in place as a matter of course.
We can request.
We can request that. So we will request that.
Okay.
If that helps. I'll bring Councillor Quinn back in, Pam, before, if that's in the same point.
Yeah, from my point of view, I mean, the errors happens, and from this committee, then so for me, it's great this committee will look at what's the impact of those errors and how it's made good. So that's fine. I'm comfortable that that's going to be done within the recommendation. But the question around is process and financial risk. So if this error doesn't get picked up, potentially another committee or somewhere else potentially would suffer the same consequences. So I just need reassurance from our financial risk, not just this individual risk, but going forward, that the procedures are in place so this error and things like this don't happen again. So it's kind of wider than just this incident. So it's generally that wider issue. So that's why it needs to go to audit to look across that and not just this way.
I'll bring in Ruth first of all, but obviously Mary might have a
Yes,
comment on it.
I appreciate actually the point that I don't absolutely have clarity in is when we work with internal audits to look at different processes and how those are managed, and we look at the action plans on the back of that, how that is identified, whether a committee can call for that, whether or not that is done on a risk-based process. But I will find that out and report back to you as to what that looks like. But please don't take my lack of detail on the answer as not a commitment to look at everything that's happened. It's just we procedurally have to get this correct.
Yeah, no, I think that was my point. Okay, can I bring Pam in if that is satisfied with you and Lynn? Pam?
Thanks very much, Convener. I think the points I wanted to make have really been covered. Forgive the pun, but I don't want this committee to be looking as if we're marking our own homework. And I think there is a case for the wider issues and how we've got to this position. I fully accept the point that we probably need more of an examination and investigation before we have a report that then can be examined out with this committee. So I think I'm really just repeating what colleagues have said, but thank you.
Councillor McVeigh, Tommy?
I think it can be a very disappointing concerning report that you look at. I'm looking at appendix 3 and well understand there's always in budgets. But the right hand column, looking at 106%, 67%, 484%, 528%. Some of them small figures, some of them larger, 24%, 50%, 28%. That suggests to me either budget's been set wrong in the first place, or it's not been monitored correctly to pick these things up a lot earlier. Which one would it be directed?
It's really can't be there. So there's two different answers depending on which one you're looking at. So the teachers one has been the monitoring. And the one to do with the catering has been where it hasn't been set correctly in the first place.
Okay, thank you. So clear. So We've got this £1,000,000 off pen, so what impact does that have on your budget? Your budget 24-25, do you now have to find £1,000,000 through cuts, or have you got reserves, do you contain budgets, where do you go, is it a risk to jobs or services? Because we've got this £1,000,000 overspend.
So, and again, there's two different answers. So the first one around the teacher salaries and supply, we will need to manage the supply budget. So now schools have always in some way had to manage the cover, the way they cover absence and illness, and we will make sure that that comes in within the allocated supply budget over this year, because now in the new financial year, so we're saying within this parameter of the amount of teachers we have, the amount of central supply, and it's the central supply that's been hit for this one, and we will manage, we will make, make the decisions that manages that budget. So that will look at managing the budget within our means. The other one with the catering, and I know Mary's been looking particularly at that one. She's probably going to give a more eloquent answer about the different aspects of that. But it's about where we allocate the budget in particular, and I'll bring Mary on that one.
Mary?
Yeah, through you, Convener, yes. In terms of the catering, I mean, the budget should be fine for next year. What had happened was the 1140 budget was ring fenced. It was grant funded. It was reducing year on year with an earmarked reserve that was funding parts of it. So had it been mainstream from the start, we'd have had a far better handle on the budget. So for next year, it is mainstreamed, and we've allocated the budget accordingly. So we're confident that it should be okay. What I would say in terms of looking at the material variances, and yeah, there is that overspend. Teachers aren't massively overspent. The catering is, but we're going to sort that for next year. Your transport costs are, especially under ASN, that's where the biggest pressure is at the moment, and that is subject to a delivering differently review at the moment. That is the biggest actual pressure.
And maybe just a Janet and John question with regard to, because we are so much in the year end, so if we as a committee come in on deficit and revenue, I suppose probably Councillor McVeigh's question as well, where does that deficit go? I mean, who then pays for that, and where does it get squared off?
It reduces reserves. Yeah.
Right. I think that's a question. So what will actually happen is the reserves that gets reported to P&R will get reduced by whatever the deficit is on the revenue for the one-off for the education. Sorry, Ruth, you want to come in there because I've not explained it properly?
No, that's absolutely spot on, Convener. What I would say as well is the issue is what we have reported and haven't reported to committees. So the biggest overspend is ASN Transport, but we've continually reported that to committee. You've been aware as a committee that we've had pressures on there. What we haven't been reporting is the pressure on the overspend in the teachers' budget, so in the supply budget. And actually there's elements of this committee which have historically come in under budget, which have protected other sides of the committee. And to be honest, that's quite often been the supply budget because we couldn't get supply. So where we've overspent slightly anywhere else, it's offset other underspends have offset slight overspends. This has been a position where we haven't come in with underspends to offset the overspends, apart from a small one in CLD. But I think the issue for this is that we haven't had early sight of the budget pressure that we've been taking forward.
Yeah, I think this is the end of that, and it's seen 3.5 as a report coming back, but which would be very interesting reading. I hope to see that sooner rather than later, but share concern because of what's paid for the climate. I don't think the audit thing is a bad idea as such, but we've had to direct science, thanks.
Can I bring Robert in, Councillor Moran?
Hi, thanks, Convener. Just to emphasise the point that, when it goes to Paul's resources, we're looking at a projected surplus of 5.9 million, whatever, right? As you say there, the Employment Work Group are arguing over £4,000, and here we find this going to Paul's resources with £1 million just out of shortfall. And there might be good reasons for it. I think children's education is priceless, quite honest with you. But at the end of the day, we are looking at that position ours having been completely £1 million short now when it comes back to Paul's resources because of what's happened here. But my question as well is, you say 4.2 we noted that the community part of the committee is currently projecting underspend 193,000, which partly offsets the projected overspend education part of the committee. So I was under pressure they sort of budgets were separate, but according to that, it's not. It's a one budget. So will we using our underspend from the committees to offset the overspend of the education, if that's the same? And I wasn't aware of that. I thought that budget was for the communities and that would be education.
No. Ruth, I'll leave you.
Through your convening law, we've got an education communities budget, so there's no separation of the two budgets, and we previously used underspends in one committee to offset overspends in others, and it's gone both ways in the past. From Mary, I think you're right, but the education part of the Shaping Communities committee sits separately because we have different members. So we have the parent representation. So actually the budget is considered, although we do two separate budget papers, the budget will cross over both sides. Mary, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that?
No, that's what I would just say myself.
So just for confirmation that this will impact our reserve position going forward. That's a fact. And that's all I want to know. Thank you.
And just on your last point as well, the underspend came from the IL Utilities Fund, and it was allowed us to say that we've rather than paying it back to the centre, we can use that this year, and that's been previously voted to committee as well. Can I ask this very important point? Is there any other questions? David, you've got your hand up again. Sorry, I didn't know if it was legacy hand.
Yeah, no, it's a new one. No, as chair of audit, I'd just like to comment on the conversation about referring the overspend to audit. I've got no view on that. I think it needs to be left to Mr. Puckrin and possibly KPMG's decision on that. As a general observation, I don't know whether we want to go forward continually referring overspends from each of our committees to the audit committee. I would question whether that would be a right way to go. Thank you, convener.
Okay.
Through you, convener, if my understanding is correct, I think the question about audit is particularly not about the overspend, but about the process. So, and that's something I think there's a commonality in the room saying that there's an undertaking, no matter how it goes, that we will look at the process and take that place.
Okay, David. Can I, Robert, you want back in again?
Oh, sorry,
If not, just want to make sure I've
legacy
a chance. Obviously, by this has been a very difficult and important paper, both for finance and for our own education committee. And it's the first time we've probably ever seen a paper like this. So, and I know we are the biggest budget within the council, but it's still disappointing when it happens. I can only thank our officers for being prudent and at least coming to the committee and giving us the facts of what's happened. So I can thank the finance and our own officers for doing that. And with the caveats that we've talked about, what Ruth has actually said, can I actually say agree with the paper? Right. Thanks for that. Can we go to agenda item number 7, which is the capital programme? Eddie?
Yeah, thanks, convener. Education capital programme, largely now consisting of life cycle activity. Overall, the position is we're reporting net advancement of just over £1 million, and that's through the amount of work we've taken through predominantly in the life cycle category. That's summarised in appendices 2A and 2B. 2A capturing the last 3 years final position, and then 2B is what we're planning so far for the current financial year. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Eddie. Can't see any questions in line. Robert?
Thanks, convener. It's just the 3.5, the reinforced concrete. Obviously, I'm a worker in first in my school, you know, and I just want to know there's an ongoing dialogue with obviously parents and carers, you know, because I mean, you see it in the report. Obviously, it flies a kite, you know, and I know there's no danger there. You know, I just want to know what conversations are taking place with the children and their parents and the carers regarding the RAC situation, and going forward, you know, say that we will be warned of it. I hope that they're kept up to speed in all developments.
Thanks, Robert. Eddie, do you want to comment?
Yeah, through you, convener. I mean, when we discovered the RAC at St Michael's, there were letters went out to all the parents through the Education Service, you know, just informing them of that and the action that the council had taken. The information's still there on the council's website. You know, the information's there. I suppose in terms of our longer term or medium term monitoring of it and continuing that, and then for any new parents that come into the system that may not be aware, that's maybe something that we can take forward through education and just to make sure any new parents are in the loop and up to speed with the position. But it is just a position statement in the paper. We continue to monitor it. We will obviously develop a remediation strategy over the kind of short to medium term, but it's just to make sure, you know, the committee and everybody's aware that it's not something that's going to be resolved in the short term.
I think so.
Okay. So I see in the paper, it's sort of, when you say medium, so we've got around about 2026 is at least to have a plan in place for it. Eddie, would that be fair to assume that?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd be looking to put a plan in place earlier than that, ideally, but certainly by no later than that. Yep. Okay,
thank you. Any other questions? Can't see anything online. Can we agree the recommendations?
Good.
Thank you. Can we move to agenda item number 8, which is the CEDAC report of the Michael. Help you, Ruth, to start.
Happy to take this one. So this is the committee improvement plan. It has the high level actions. In Appendix 1, we've got the delivery and plan and action tracker. And then in Appendix 2, you've got the annual refresh of the improvement plan. Remember, we set a 3-year improvement plan, but it's refreshed every year to reflect any things that were completed or any new actions that have been taken on board. And you'll see that in the plan itself, it identifies new actions. For instance, I'll look at page 56. The ASN provision is new and has this health and wellbeing. Hopefully you'll find it useful. The key performance indicators are also there, as is a risk register. The LGBF, which we use for quite a lot of the key performance indicators, has recently been refreshed. It was refreshed between the submission and actually the date that the committee. So we've updated all of those KPIs, and you'll see in Appendix 2, if I give you each number of parts that will help, page 66. We've put our targets against the family group averages for 2023. Because that gives us the best idea of how we're doing it against others, and then we've put in targets of where we'd hope to be at the end of 2023-24, and of course we're going through the exam season for that just now. So it's always a movement. Happy to take any comments or any questions.
Questions? Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, I've just got a quick question under report 7. It's the slippage on the CLD plan. I'm just aware that CLD have just had an audit, so I'm just trying to see if there's anything in the audit and will that feature in the plan.
I can see Hugh Tony here, but I'll have a go at answering it myself first. So we hope to have the CLD previous strategy, and we've given ourselves March as a defining point for that. In actual fact, we're probably over ambitious, I would have to say, because we don't have to publish until September or October. Since then, we've had the inspection, and also we work with the national review of CLD as well. So again, when I say moving beast, these things keep changing, but we will take into account the feedback from the recent inspections into the CLD action plan. And I know, because we've got officers working on it and partners working on it behind the scenes, that that's in progress as we speak.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? David? Councillor
Yeah,
Wilson?
thanks very much. I'd like to go to big page 51 concerning Gaelic education. Having listened to our financial situation, my personal view is this Gaelic education is a luxury that we can't afford in the current financial straitened times, and I'm not really very approved of it. But the question I would like to ask, later on in the papers, we failed to attract a Gaelic teacher to Inverclyde Academy. Can I ask, when do we intend to do that? And will our start time of August 24 still be on for starting this Gaelic education?
I can take that. So basically, whilst I accept it's an opinion of yourselves and everyone's got an opinion, we do have to go to the Gaelic Act, where there's an entitlement or a requirement of education authorities to provide Gaelic where requested, and if we offer Gaelic in the primary sector, there's an expectation that there will be a guarantee of this continuing to the secondary sector, which is why the work was done in the background. So there is a requirement of the authority to take action on that. The Gaelic advert was out. I know that I think there's a re-advertisement for that, and but we do have a contingency plan for the first couple of years if we're not able to attract a teacher.
David, is that okay?
Yeah, just as a general comment, those kids that are currently our pupils at the Gaelic School in Glasgow. The Gaelic School in Glasgow is one of the best in the whole country. It was 12th recently on the list of for higher results. 68% of the pupils in 5th year got 5 hires. Standing school. I just wonder if we can even match that. Thank you.
Through you, convener, 5 hires is a very, very narrow measure. It doesn't measure the totality of educational provision or educational achievement. That's why when you look at how we measure the key performance indicators, we will look at 1 at, 3 at, and also 5 at hires. We will also look at tariff points, because not everybody, especially those who perhaps do foundation apprenticeship, will undertake the hires as we know them in the traditional way. So what I would say is that 5 hires is a very narrow measure, and it's most importantly not the measure that most suits all of the young people in Inverclyde.
Thank you, Ruth. Councillor Wilson's that explanation, full explanation?
No, it's an explanation.
A debate with
it's an explanation I've heard before from the director, and I hear where she's coming from. But I must remind her that higher results are something that parents look at. They look at a school, look at its higher results, and that's something that affects their judgment on things. So we must consider the view of parents when we're talking about higher results.
Thanks for your comments, David. Councillor Robertson.
Thanks. Just on the back of that, really, I suppose the question I've got is if I think back, understanding of why we got to where we are with Gaelic is that there was no certainty of kids from Inverclyde getting into the school in Glasgow. Has that position changed?
I promise I'll let you come in later. There is still no certainty.
Okay.
We cannot guarantee a place for any young person as a placing request in another authority. That's not changed. There might be 100 places at the Glasgow Gaelic School, there might be 0, but the position was from Inverclyde, but we could guarantee that, and we couldn't, and that's why the action is taken.
Thanks. So just we're able to provide more certainty to our parents about the continuation of that expectation of a Gaelic medium education by providing a role. Thanks.
Michael, you got anything you want to add? No. I thought we could read all of that. Do we have any other questions on the CEDIP? No. Can we agree to the recommendations? Can we go to agenda item number 9, which is Educational Services Standard and Quality Report? And I'm going to bring Michael in this time. Michael. Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Convener. So this is the annual standards and policy report for the Education Service for the not academically run the improvement plan and the policy reporting in April to April in line with financial years. And obviously this is a statutory requirement for us to produce this. It's been produced in consultation with a range of stakeholders and gathering up a huge amount of information from a range of sources which are outlined in the report. We'd be pleased to hear I do not intend to talk to people for 5 pages. There's a lot to cover, and I'm keen to feed in information that we might have. One of the key drivers for us in this report is to identify under each of the national priorities the areas, the next steps that we as a service have identified that we need to work towards. And over the last 3 years, the number of priorities that we've identified has been condensed to try and ensure we're not trying to be too ambitious and cover too much. And a lot of what we are working on is the continuation of the next step development in some of our priorities. So with that said, I'm happy to take any questions on the floor.
And thanks, Michael. This is a very full report, and there could be numerous questions and in-depth questions on it. But I will open up to members. Elizabeth, Councillor Robertson first.
Thank you. I've got one question. It's about in the covering report of 4.1, the third paragraph, third bullet. Not for going to say the fourth bullet point. Forgive me, educationalists who may judge my numeracy skills. October 2023, the initial school leaver destination figure increasing to 96.4 is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Getting back up to those very, very high figures, and we know that not all of our young people we want them all to have a positive destination, but we know it's not necessarily realistic for every single child. But what we've always done in Amberclyde is make sure that in the unknowns, that whilst we might not have yet the child in a positive destination, we always knew where the young person was, what they were doing. And I'm not seeing that stated. I just want to check that we've still got no unknowns.
Yeah, we have no unknowns.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much for the report. Obviously, very, very full, very informative, and I particularly wanted to welcome paragraph 4 and the highlights and key messages. It's very positive, and yeah, great to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Can't see anything online. Can't see anything in the room. Can we agree with the report?
Absolutely. Agree.
Can we move to just the overview of local and national initiatives, item number 10? Michael, yourself again.
Thank you. So again, I want to let you know of this. There are a number of inspection outcomes, particularly in Education Scotland, because are publicly, but they're not committed because they were published after this report came, and we'll bring those to you in September. Obviously, in this report, we're sharing the news that we've had a very positive inspection on the class. In January, I have to say there was some delay getting this report from the inspector, but we got it in the end. The across 3.2 and 3.3, there's as much information as I can glean at this current moment in respect of the reform agenda. I think possibly we will hear more in the coming weeks, given the changes in leadership in Holyrood. But certainly what we're trying to do through our education improvement plan is not be sitting waiting for that to come. It's trying to take some action to progress developments in the best interest of our young people, within reading the rooms of what we becoming. Under pupil equity funding, we're still waiting on the publication of the national data. I was at a meeting last Friday that indicated it was imminent. I still haven't seen it. But what I can assure you is that our tracking and spending of that payment is rigorous, and we're trying to make sure that every single penny is spent appropriately. Under 3.5, there's quite a bit of information about the National Quality and Anti-Racism Education update. There's supposed to be a national summit about this a couple of weeks ago, which had to be postponed, hoping that will come again soon in the next academic year. And as hopefully we picked up from our Amazon quality report under section E, there's quite a lot of work going on in Inverclyde in relation to this. I suppose we are trying to be sort of bold in our development of this and support for schools to take leadership on this agenda, and very much we're in line with national development and the role through districts, and AGIS is part of the national group leading on that. So just to give you assurance that we're working hard in that area. I think we touched on 3.7, the GME, in respect of the fact that we're still looking to recruit, but we have contingency plans in place to provide teaching from within the provision that we have both at Win Hill, but also in conjunction with potentially Eastwell for August. And there's finally, again, recently a reference to this 3.8, an update again as we know it in respect to the teacher numbers, what we're trying to currently do is track very carefully to ensure that we come in on that same figure as the census year last year. So happy to take your questions.
A lot of the questions. I think the first thing to say is again to congratulate Lady Alice Primary. I think we've done it before at this committee, but those of us who have been here for a long time, you know, it's been on a journey. So it's really fantastic to see those results coming through as well, and congratulations to all involved. Councillor Quinn, Lynn?
Yeah, thanks. I just want to use this report now when you try to squeeze things into reports, because you just see a wee line and you think, there we go. So under 3.5, just to mention stuff you're doing on anti-racism and within our schools is actually been fantastic. So I know David Burton isn't here today, and he's probably missed the opportunity to mention the Guru Schools and Churches Together group, and they've got, so they've taken a project on board where they're looking to have a stained glass window put in Guruk Station, as well as a song that's written by the laureates. We've got plenty of talent locally, and we're making use of that talent. Alec Galloway is going to be involved with stained glass, and Guruk Station is actually funding that some of the works as well. So it's just a wee shout out to the Guruk Schools and Churches Together, and working with all schools in Guruk and all churches coming together and tackling this important issue. So I'm just wanting David Snow here to kind of receive the thanks, but I'm sure we can hopefully pass on to the committee our thanks to everybody involved in that. Thanks.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions or comments?
Yes.
Oh, Francesca, sorry, I was looking at
Thanks very much, Convener. I think, yeah, definitely what we're seeing in this paper and the previous one is just certainly that real focus on equality, diversity and inclusion that I know loads of us would really very much want to see in Inverclyde, and just I didn't make a comment in the previous paper, but I think it was very much there, and it's echoed here as well. Like Councillor Clem was saying in section 3.5 about that anti-racism education. Now we often find ourselves in an all-white space in Inverclyde, but I'm assured that ally is a verb, so it's just to really express our support for all the work that's going on there, and our thanks. For that too, I know that with the presentation previously from the Art Primary leading the way, and it's just great to see that being built on again and again, because I know it was something that parents were looking for when we were attending parent partnerships, and young people were looking for through Clyde Conversations as well. So just thanks for all that work that's going on there, and it would be good to hear. I had picked up that summit wasn't indeed taking place in May, but it would be good to hear what the outcomes are when that's taking place. Thank you.
Thanks, Francesca. Sorry. Councillor Allen.
Thanks, Convener. Thank you. We've heard about the recruitment for the post for Gallant Medium Education Secondary School. What we haven't heard, and I don't know if it's possible, is what the demand side is like in terms of do we have any kind of picture about how many children, young people are looking for that kind of provision? Is that possible, or? Thank you.
Michael?
Yeah, so through you, Convener, I think we have to be very careful about exposing the numbers here.
Okay.
It's a very small group. And currently playing on the hill.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay. A can't see any questions online. Any other questions here? No, can we agree the report? Can we move to agenda item number 11, which is the Strategic Equity Fund and the associated special aims update. I think that was probably on the CDIPS as well at some point, right?
So if you can do that, I'm going to get my hand up to my colleague Mark for you. This is just the paper doing two things. One, bringing an update in respect to the strategic equity fund planning that's going on towards the end of the current funding, and so that was the exit strategy. And we've update on the core info plus stretchings. So I'm going to hand over to Mark, if that's okay.
Mark, welcome.
Thanks, convener. Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
No problem.
I'm a bit loud. Apologies. The purpose of this report is to ask Education Communities Committee to note the updated CEF plan for 24 to 26 and the CEF exit strategy. To plan for the final 2 years of the Attainment Challenge Fund, it was important to review the current plan for session 23-24 and the progress made on outcomes from the logic model. It's also important to reflect on the stretch aims progress. Using the logic model allowed us to look to where we want to get to and to work backwards from that target, identifying interventions required. Our plans are reviewed each year to ensure that we are directing the fund in the areas where the need is greatest and to support children and families impacted by poverty. Core and Core Plus stretch aims were submitted to the Scottish Government and they are for over the remainder of the Attainment Challenge Fund through to the end of session 25-26, with milestones at the end of each session indicated in the form of gap windows. Stretch aims were identified and agreed by head teachers and focus on trajectories for improvements and narrowing the poverty-related attainment gap. Core stretch aims link directly to the National Improvement Framework, whereas Core Plus stretch aims linked specifically to ongoing Inverclyde initiatives. We recently launched the literacy strategy and framework this session with a focus on the teaching of reading and a focus on the teaching of talking and listening. We hope to conclude that framework with the teaching of writing by early next session. We also have stretch aims that focus on attendance, both for secondary and for primary pupils, and also the attainment of our care experienced young people. It's worth noting that the Scottish Government measures focus on Q1 versus Q5 attainment. This does not provide a reliable measurement for Inverclyde, however. Inverclyde, in agreement with the Senior Regional Advisor from Education Scotland, focuses on the gap between Q1 and Q2 to 5, which provides consistently a more robust and reliable measurement. In relation to reporting on stretch aims, this is completed annually in September, as this is when we have the most up-to-date data. Following on from the CEF plan, we required to have an exit strategy that would ensure a smooth transition from the funded period to the non-funded period. This provided an opportunity to plan for the remainder of the programme through to the end of June 2026. In planning for this, we carefully considered the stretch aims and how to build towards sustainability with reduced capacity. We intend to do this by continuing to embed current pedagogical practices across Inverclyde schools, continuing to deliver both targeted and universal approaches, supporting our most vulnerable establishments in line with the operational guidance from Attainment Challenge, but also ensuring a universal offer for delivery for schools who are not identified as Attainment Challenge schools. By continuing to build leadership capacity across all establishments and delivering the literacy framework. Through evaluating the Attainment Challenge programme and the impact this session, we identified key aspects for delivery of the logic model and outcomes of the stretch aims. Through the collation of this information, a plan was created that will provide support for children, young people and families, as well as establishments to focus on those impacted by poverty. Partnership approaches still continue with work with CLD and Barnardo's delivering interventions to support readiness to learn, and also on supporting young people in their pathways to initial and sustainable destinations. We continue to use data to ensure we are effectively tracking and monitoring progress towards stretch aims and are looking to identify digital solutions to support a sustainable model. The plan takes account of the reduction in funding over the years, which impacts available staffing and resources. In planning ahead, we had to look at the available funds and how to deliver this differently. In conclusion, I ask that the committee note the updated CEF plan and the exit strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for that very full report.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it to questions. I've got Elizabeth, Councillor Robertson first.
Thanks. This is a wee meta question actually, and it's about the covering report. I'm just looking at the kind of bits at the back that we kind of fill in all of the reports where we've got our the implications for environment, sustainability, all that kind of thing. And I'm looking at the qualities and I'm looking at children, young people in terms of rights and wellbeing, impact assessment. Now, I always feel that when we fill in those bits there, those are the bits that we can later on go back at the end of the year and say, this is what we've done as a council that has impacted on our equalities duty or Fair Scotland duty or the rights of young people without having to go through every single detail of every single report. And I think we've done ourselves a disservice because I think that this does have an impact in a policy way in terms of the stretch aims, etc., that we've identified for children and young people and also for Fairer Scotland duty. So I just think that maybe, do you know what I mean? It's when it's almost like a ready reckoning. You can go back and go, these are the reports that have said that they have an impact on that, and we can pull them out. And I think these have an impact on that, and we've kind of said that they don't.
Ruth, I'll get asked you to comment on that.
Yes, and I'm going to ask a question myself here. I think we have a qualities impact
thought,
for the actual plans themselves. So this isn't a new. So Mark, your strategic equity fund has a quality impact assessment route to it, is my understanding.
Yes, I think it does. I think that was done initially.
Yeah.
When they had the refresh.
So because the refreshers have the equalities impact assessment, it wouldn't be necessarily when we're looking at the intermittent stages that we would do a new one, because it's not actually a new policy or function. I can take the feedback and look at it.
I take Councillor Robertson's point of view. I'll let her speak herself. Elizabeth?
Well, it's just more like the stretch aims and ours, they're things that we change, they're things that we add on, you know, so it's a kind of, it's not, I suppose it's taking the point that yes, initially when it was done with an EQIA, but it's not a static document, you know, it's something that we've moved on with, so it's another opportunity where we're doing something different, evolving, emerging, to do with these things, and I don't mean it this way, but it's two hits rather than one, and actual it's substantial things that we're doing in those areas.
Yeah, well, that's a fair comment, and we can take the back at actually whether or not we would update the EQIA on the back of this. No,
thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm going to bring Francesca in.
Thanks very much, Convener, and thanks so much, Mark, for that report and all the work that you're continuing to do in terms of raising attainment for all here in Inverclyde. My question is one that I think I often ask about attendance, which perhaps for yourself or perhaps for Michael and Ruth, and it's just something that it just keeps sticking out, I think, in the reports that we get, not just here in Inverclyde, but really a kind of national picture. I suppose I think I was looking into it and seeing that education became compulsory for 5 to 13-year-olds in 1872, so admittedly quite a long time ago, and a lot has changed since then, as we all know. But that social covenant that we all agree to, that the right place for a young person to be is at school, has not changed in that time until we've hit the pandemic, and that seemed to bust the myth that as a young person you absolutely your best place to be is at school, and it's not at all. This is not at all for attacking young people or any parents or any schools at all, because it's such a complex issue and it's such a challenge for young people at this point, and the people who look after them, including us and schools and our parents. But I think we seem to be at this really pivotal moment where attendance just continues to be this big challenging issue that we can't entirely get on top of. That I was looking at a report that's maybe mentioned here about Education Scotland recently put out the report on attendance that I think we were waiting for and has been referred to at past committees, and we were looking for that for guidance. And it identifies at the start, a number of key groups at increased risk, and one of the key groups at increased risk of being affected by attendance is young people in secondary education. So that's an awful lot of young people, and I just think we've got this big responsibility really as a society to look at it. We're hearing in these papers about the really fantastic educational experience young people will get in Inverclyde, and I absolutely believe in that. But we need them to actually be there for that in the first place, and when they're there, we need them to be in class and going to school. And it's something that I often will ask Michael and Ruth about, and I think really rock solid assurances from you that you're on top of it, that you're doing everything you can. But it's just to kind of indicate that continued focus, I suppose, for those young people, because we want the best for the young people of Inverclyde, and also for their parents who really need them to be there at school as well, so that they can be living their lives and fulfilling their potential too, as well as the young people. So I think it was just an ask for that assurance again about what we're doing here in Inverclyde to tackle that attendance problem.
So through you, Convener, yeah, absolutely, you've raised this before. In fact, you raised this at the last committee, and I think I conveyed to you that in response to that, I went back and put a little more information into a section of the Standards and Quality Report and gave even more detail and an outline of some of the actions that we're taking. And certainly the ESN briefing for elected members, and Councillor Armstrong was looking for more detail. I am more than happy to bring a full report back in the new term, or a specific members briefing on this issue. It's a national issue, it's a Scottish issue, a Welsh issue, Northern Ireland, you can see it if you go looking across the planet. There's a shift in that covenant, that social covenant you talked about, in that almost unwritten social contract between families and education. But also, I wouldn't ever want to give this impression that we don't underestimate the significant challenges and pressures that families and children are facing. I attended on Friday another national briefing through ADEX. In fact, I wrote a team advisor who wrote, who was the key architect of writing the report that you referred to, the Education Scotland, or the Cabinet Secretary, was again presenting nationally, and we were having a look at the data sets, for example, that West Lothian Council have developed, which literally give live current data on school absences to allow very immediate responses in terms of analysing, which we have that. So there's a very complex range of issues here. There's the knowing who's in and who isn't in, and the knowing why, and the unpicking of that, and then trying to look to see if there are case-by-case specific issues in place that are affecting attendance at school, and then there are wider strategies that come out of that report that you referred to, which are summarised as the push and pull to school. So, the question I would pose to myself and colleagues is, for example, the curriculum work attending for, is it meeting the needs of our young people? So you may have seen on Twitter on Friday, the Works at Night Primary School in Waverley. This was part of a genuine development in the curriculum to try and engender an excitement about learning and the curriculum, and that was the final exit point of that process. And then you may have seen them going around the streets of Port Glasgow carrying out a little protest about saving the planet, because the next question that they're looking on as a school is, how do we help our planet? So head teachers are trying to be as creative as they can to engender that pull to school. And there are other things that are within our service improvement plan and reports through Standards and Quality Report, which are attempts to yet again try and better meet the needs of young people. And I referred briefly yesterday to the fact that, for example, we are now calling in every young person who has less than 10% attendance to our fortnightly ASG to be assured that the school is aware of that actions are in place, there's a plan in place, and partners are playing their part in that. So there's a lot of activity and a lot of work, and now an increased amount of sharing across the local authorities of Scotland. If somebody else has got a solution, we want to know about that, what can we do? So it is complex, and too complex even for this task I'm giving you now, but I'm more than happy to bring out the report briefing back in the new term.
Okay, that's great. I think we look forward to getting feedback on it. Thanks for education. I've got Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, it's just on the back of there, I think you mentioned the projector's about to highlighted that it is very complex, and I don't know if if it is useful or not, but sharing my experience, because I did have a child who didn't engage in school after the pandemic. There was something there about transitions where it was totally lost. But really, I just wanted, the reason I'm bringing it up, it was just the solution to that was very personal and very adaptable, and I think it's just to recognise that my thanks to the school, because the solution changed daily, hourly, and they just adapted and went with the flow, and as a parent really felt listened to. So yeah, but I think it's just highlighting that it's very individual, so there is so many things in there that is individual. I just put my thanks to the staff are really doing their best, but as you say, it's a big issue to crack, but when one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah, through you can hear that, and thank you for that acknowledgement. I mean, I think in line with what we presented to you yesterday, there are universal solutions. The curriculum in its widest sense, but then even within that, there are sport curriculum solutions, pathways that can make all the difference. There may be mental health need that can be met quite simply or more in a more complex way. So absolutely, again, I'm more than happy to bring back what we're currently working on at those various tiers. And as I say, we're always open out, we're looking to find solutions from elsewhere if they're working.
Anything else? Nothing online, nothing on the ground. Can we agree the recommendation? That's going to be bringing up at some point. And nicely on to agenda item number 12, which is a report on the enhanced nurture division. Just to begin with, thanks very much for the presentation. I thought it's an excellent presentation. Hopefully it made people more aware of exactly what's getting provided when required. So I thank you and all your staff for doing that, and hand you over to this lady.
Thank you. The slides yesterday have now gone out, and obviously if people didn't attend and we've got any questions from those slides, then I'm more than happy to have a conversation about that. This is a report that's coming to committee on the back of another report that came to committee last time in respect of an update to the delivery of the project at Women View Academy. I think there's a feeling that committee wanted a bit more information about the Thrive Enhanced Nurture provision that's based at St Michael's Primary School. So we alluded to this yesterday in briefing, and one of the big drivers for the delivery of the project that you'll recall was an increased spend and budget pressure around out-of-authority placements. So we did have, and we do continue to have, some primary age pupils who we had to find an alternative placement for in independent provision with the authority, because we're nothing like this. And we recognise there are a wide range of indicators and ongoing monitoring of the situation. But this was an absolute need, that growth in young children who had, for a whole range of different reasons, what we make broader term social emotional difficulties that were potentially causing quite significant dysregulation. And whilst many of our schools had and have and continue to have nurture provisions within them, they could be dominated by one single case, and so there was and even then it was challenged to meet the level of need. So as part of the project, and I think we took you through this in the last report, we scoped out what the service and the offer might be, and we looked to create this provision, which is currently called Thrive. There's other Thrives around, which can cause complexity. We might be changing the name, so it is just now, but it's an enhanced nurture provision, and we have used our current staffing and current state to create this space at St Michael's. What the report seeks to do is to give you some information in section 3 as to the background of that and the increased success of it. I think when we first put it in place around August, September time, the model we'd hoped to achieve was to be a mix of children attending as a placement, split placement if you like, between their mainstream setting and provision at Thrive, and degree of outreach from a principal teacher who would support mainstream staff to develop their planning to meet the needs. However, the level of need, I think, possibly underestimated, and so it put a real strain on not being able to provide as much outreach as we had hoped. And so again, through ongoing monitoring through the ASN monitoring forum that we talked about yesterday, we identified that we needed to increase the number of places again, and that's what we've done from April. We're in readiness for the next academic year. There's a range of information we shared yesterday, but also some that's outlined here. But certainly what we're seeing, for example, in attendance, is we're seeing improved attendance of those pupils, both attending the provision itself, but also then being able to have more success back at school, because the enhanced nurture provision, they've got a very prolific Twitter feed. If you follow them, you'll see what they're doing literally on a daily basis. A huge emphasis is around play pedagogy and following children's interests in order to engage them in learning. So engagement levels have improved. Attainment is improving as a result of their increased engagement in their learning, and as I say, their attendance at school, and also feedback from families is that the overall presentation of the youngster is that they are happier, they're achieving more success over time, and what we're trying to do is maintain their mainstream placement. And so far, from the cohort of young people that we have, pregnant children that we have engaged, there's no child that currently gets identified that we wouldn't be able to continue to meet their needs through this provision. There are some children who tend quite a bit a week at Thrive, because that's what they currently need. But there's an ongoing dialogue, a planning dialogue between the mainstream setting and Thrive in order to ensure that we can continue to effectively meet the needs, support the family, and the increased capacity is given more time for the outreach, which we see as being quite critical. There are some next steps identified within the Long View service plan, and in fact, they're currently going through their 3-day peer review. And I actually got a message from one of my officers who hasn't been involved before, saying how much he had thoroughly enjoyed his time in Thrive this morning and observing what was going on. So the idea now is to continue and to develop that provision. We've actually come away with 2 other enhanced nurture provisions within the West Partnership that we're connecting with to moderate and benchmark our approach, and also looking at staff training for the team that are there, also they can take that training and deliver that support back in mainstream settings. And because we're always keen to make sure that the children have that place back at school, although that can be a challenge for some of them. There's just that transition, if they're spending the morning in Thrive and going back to school. So we've had to look at various ways of managing the timetable so that we can most effectively. So, I think I've covered what's in the report. I'm happy to take more questions, and more than happy if anyone would like to visit and to see provision to arrange that for if you would like.
Thanks, Michael. I'll open for questions first of all. Francesca?
Thanks very much, Convener, and thanks so much for that report. Michael, I think it's just great really to see this, that I think it's exactly what we would want, is that there are challenges with that particular sort of situation around the area, and so often we talk about, savings and efficiencies, and I think you're saying here that's actually exactly what this isn't. It's actually really looking at it so carefully and thoughtfully and coming up with something that just makes so much sense for the young people who attend and for their families. That I see you mentioned there the Vauxhall profile, which I know is named after Marjorie Vauxhall, and I think that's like from 1960s or 1970s inner city London where that started, and these challenges are still with us today for young people, sadly. But I think what you're describing here just sounds like such an important piece of work, and my question was always going to be, is there enough provision? Are all the young people who are going to need it going to be able to access it? And there you're saying, in 4.3 that you're going to be able to support up to 18 young people, and every child who is assessed as needing it is going to be able to attend. That's just exactly right. Thanks so much.
Michael, do you want to
Convener, as we hopefully outlined yesterday, that it's an ongoing challenge for us to be able to identify as early as possible the level of needs, and try as quickly as possible to support context that a young person is in and support the family, and that continues to be our endeavour, including trying again to see, even at the point of admission to our earlier things, what else do we know prior to that, so that we could put the right support in place across our years. Certainly what we we are currently doing is looking at the young people who are in external placements to the authority and trying to start a process of working with everybody to see if it's possible to bring them back into Inverclyde via a route like such as this. But that may be not possible. That would be our hope. But certainly our current projections are that out authority placement budget would be coming in line next year, but we're always vulnerable to a young person arriving in the authority that we don't know about, that's moving into the area that we just would have no intelligence around. But we're trying to keep the provision under review and meet the level of need as best we can.
Thank you. Wasn't it? Councillor Robertson.
Thank you. I didn't have a question until you said that, Bailey. And I now do have a question. This is a conversation Councillor Armstrong and I have had in the past, and she's now wondering what I'm going to say, about when things happen through the children's reporter system and through the children's hearing system that actually have an impact on your budget and have an impact on HSCB budget that you have no control over. And I'm just wondering how much this is a factor in what communication we can have with our partners in SCRA and the hearing system to actually kind of say, you know, this is something that we might want to talk about if you're going to make a decision about where a young person is going to be placed educationally, residentially, in terms of their care, whatever, then we might want to do that in partnership, because I think it does have an impact on your budget, it has an impact on Kate's budget, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
We can see Ruth section again here, Ruth.
Yeah, because this is a children's services issue, because it's not just particular for authority placements. What I would say is that SCRA are on the Children's Services Planning Partnership, and we've worked with them to look at the type of information they use to make the decisions they're making, because we don't want any decision to be made on just purely cost grounds. Absolutely, that would be the wrong thing to do. But we have to make sure that the decisions that are there are informed and are the right thing for the young people. And sometimes we can come across things where we can't control the budget, around Tony's budget for transport, for instance, sometimes, out of authority placements, but also ones where particular assessments are requested as well. And we've got an educational psychology team who are saying, well, actually, here are the assessments we would typically use, and here's what we would see as best practice. So we have had dialogue with them, and we do continue to have that dialogue.
Elizabeth? Nothing online, any other questions? Oh, Tommy, sorry. Councillor Clay.
Thanks, yeah. We've got all we've thought this up, but it was well done. I think this will be a fantastic addition for the school estate. I think we're very much welcome, because I think that there's the staff see that if there is a child who's maybe got additional needs, these more folks on the bench, they have that option to do a dual approach where some playing in Thrive, some playing in school, and I think benefits will come, like I said, when you see the improvements in attendance. So very well done to have a product for putting in place.
Okay, thanks, Tommy. No other questions? Can we agree the report?
Great.
Can we move on to the final report? And this is just an update on the West of Scotland Regional Improvement Panel applicant. Ruth?
Well, nothing to add to the report. This is just an update on the fact that the Regional Improvement Collaborative will be using 50% of its funding, and funding will cease next year, and the fact that the Glasgow City Regional Education Committee will be updated on the plan at the end of it.
Of course, that could change, because I think this was one of John Swinney's babies, I think. I think he was quite in favour of this early on, so you never know. Watch this space with a lot of things. Any questions on it? If not, can we agree the report, and can I thank us all for your attendance?
Thank you.
Thank you.